Do women need more sleep than men?
They get more sleep than men. The research shows that women do get more than men.
In general, they sleep more than men do.
Yeah. If you objectively measure sleep through like a polysomnography, you will see that women sleep more than men in general.
Yeah. I've seen some of the sleep research. It says technically women, when they looked at sleep lab data, they tend to only need 20 to 30 minutes more. But what I always think about is like, if you're in a sleep lab and you're only needing 20 to 30 minutes more, it's probably because you don't have the stress, you don't have the interruption. So I think the amount of sleep women need is likely more than that. It's good to know that women do sleep more, because I find a lot of like pushback about the fact that women do sleep more or need more sleep, because sometimes women themselves feel like they're lazy or they're not doing enough if they're sleeping more than their partner. Because you'll see a lot of male, very high functioning people say that they only get 5 to 6 hours of sleep. And I think women try to match that, but it doesn't often work. Dr. Nicole Moyen is a Senior Director of Science and Clinical Research at 8 Sleep, where she leads research on how sleep and temperature regulation impact health and performance. With a PhD in biology from Stanford and more than 30 peer-reviewed publications, she has spent her career at the intersection of physiology, technology, and wellness. Nicole's recent work focuses on women's health, examining how pregnancy, menopause, and hormonal changes influence sleep. She also brings an applied perspective as a certified strength and conditioning specialist, giving her a unique lens on how physiology, fitness, and sleep intersect in real life. We are so excited to have Dr. Nicole Moyen on the podcast today. I am so excited to talk sleep and women's health and your amazing product. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I guess tell me why you got interested in working for, a company like this. I know you have a PhD in physiology. You've worked in, clinical trials before. So what was it about the company or the challenge that you loved?
So my background is in temperature regulation. I really got interested in that after playing soccer in college. I went to college in Evansville, Indiana, and played soccer there. So we were always in the hot, humid preseason of August, just dripping sweat. And I knew how terrible it felt coming from California, where I grew up. And so when I went to do my master's degree, my advisor there was like, hey, we don't actually know the impacts of humidity and how it affects your ability to exercise. I'm like, that's crazy, because I know how it feels. It feels terrible to the point where I'm getting like goosebumps and everything. And that was before I understood anything about heat illness and what that meant. So I decided to study that. And that was basically my first foray into research. And that became the thing that I was in love with, was temperature regulation. How do we handle that during exercise, heat stress, cold stress, et cetera. And I worked at a few wearable companies, Fitbit, Whoop. And then this opportunity presented itself at 8 Sleep. And I was like, this is a great way to sort of marry my interest in wearables, because we track all of that data on the bed with an 8 Sleep without needing any wearable. And then also be able to regulate temperature and actually improve sleep. And so it was this really unique opportunity for me to explore a new area. I hadn't really thought about sleep and temperature regulation, but also still have that wearable part of it too.
Love it. Okay. Full transparency. I had heard about 8 Sleep years ago and kind of perused the site, was super interested because I've always struggled with my sleep. That's the one thing that I struggled before perimenopause. And that was the one thing that got worse during perimenopause. And I looked into it, but I didn't go for it because, one, I wasn't sure exactly what it measures and how it would improve my sleep. And two, because it was a pricey investment. And at the time I was just wondering, like, am I, just like anything, like, is this going to be worth the money? Fast forward this year, and I can tell you that that is the one thing that has completely improved my sleep in a positive way. And when I heard from 8 Sleep, because I do so much work around women's health and perimenopause, I was kind of excited, mostly because it was something that I had looked into multiple times. And I wanted to see if it was like really worth the hype, because people had so many good things to say about it.
And yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I think, okay, so this is what I love about it. And you can tell me if that's what most people are telling you. I love the dual zone because I can be cooler or hotter than my partner. I love that there's a bed alarm so that you don't have to hear a blaring alarm in the morning, that it's just like a soft shaking of the mattress. I love the hot flash mode that you can kind of manually decrease the temperature if you're feeling really hot or a hot flash coming on. And I love that, like, when you get into bed, you can make it really warm. And then, like, as the night goes on, it'll auto adjust to your temperature. I'm curious to know, am I missing out on some of the best features for women, or are those kind of like the things that you hear the most feedback about?
That's great. We recently launched our Women's Sleep Initiative, and part of it came about from women writing us in and being like, I'm going through menopause. This has been game changing. It's life saving. I'd love if I could cool it rapidly while I'm in bed, right? When a hot flash comes on, and we're like, okay, we need to listen to these women. They're telling us like how they're using our product and how we could make it better. And so that was the first feature that we launched with our Women's Sleep Initiative, was hot flash mode, where you can manually cool down very quickly to the coldest temperature on the pod. And the nice thing about it is it gradually rewarms you after a set period of time. And that was another complaint that women had, is that they would cool with the pod or whatever method they had, and then they would have trouble falling back asleep because they're like drenched in sweat or whatever they did. So they really like that it rewarms. And yes, 92% of women say that they literally can't live without this feature now. So it is one of our top features. And we're continuing this investment as well in women's sleep we are running this huge 90-person study in menopausal women right now. We're finding some really interesting things, but overall, we are showing that the pod, even without hot flash mode, reduces hot flashes by 55% in women. So just sleeping on the pod itself is helping to mitigate those hot flashes from even occurring, or they occur and you sleep through them.
Okay, just to backtrack a little bit for those people who have not heard of 8 Sleep or have not been in the wellness world, may not know what a pod is. Can you explain to people what this is?
Yes. So it's, the way I explained it is, it's sort of like a fitted sheet that is a temperature regulated mattress cover. And you put your normal bedding and sheets over that. But like you said, it has dual zones. So each side of the bed has separate temperature control. And then we also have sensors in the bed that track all of your typical biometrics that you would get from wearable devices. So your heart rate variability, respiratory rate, snoring, like you mentioned. We have all of this, just, you don't have to wear anything. It just tracks it for you. You don't have to charge anything. And that's the main product. We also have an adjustable base that will raise up when it detects snoring to help stop snoring too. And then recently this year, we launched a blanket that you can also plug into the pod cover itself. And so you have like a microclimate that will keep the temperature 360 around you.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't have the blanket. That's actually a really cool idea too. So for those people, like right off the bat, if someone was like the old me, they might be like, okay, I don't really know if this is going to be the right thing. Are there options for people like to try it? Or is there is there anything that they can do at home that could kind of see if temperature regulation would help them? I know that's like kind of complicated question.
Yeah. I mean, no, it's a great question. And I think this is something that a lot of people think about before purchasing it. The thing I would say is, if you are not getting good sleep and you have tried a lot of different solutions like supplements, all these hacks, right? Like sauna, ice bath, like everything, and nothing's working, it could be temperature regulation. It doesn't just mean that you're waking up too hot or too cold constantly. It might just be you're not sleeping well and you're not really sure why. We find repeatedly that we are improving people's sleep with temperature regulation, even if that person didn't previously report that they woke up too hot or too cold during the night. So we are improving sleep for the majority of people. And we also improve cardiovascular recovery. So we see improvements in heart rate and heart rate variability as well.
Okay. My question also is that, when you track deep sleep, how do you track the deep sleep and the REM? How is that even possible?
So we have these sensors called piezoelectric sensors across the chest of the bed, like chest level, and they can detect the vibration from your heart when it beats. Mm-hmm. They can also detect the vibration from your breathing in and out. And so from that, we get your heart rate, we get your heart rate variability, and we get your respiratory rate. And similar to most wearable companies, from those metrics, we can get sleep stages, because we know generally when you're awake, your heart rate and breathing rate are higher than when you're in deep sleep. So that's how we can differentiate those stages.
So I'm someone who's getting obsessed with the numbers. So deep sleep versus REM sleep. are we trying to get a balance of the two? Are we trying to get the most we can every day? Or is it like one is more important than the other?
So ideally you have a balance of both. The thing I'll say is that, and typically it's about 20% of each. We've analyzed a ton of sleep data. I typically see around 15% deep sleep, 15 to 20%. And then REM sleep, it's 20 to 25%. I don't often see them like balanced super well. I think it's rare, but ideally people will tell you, or scientists will tell you, it should be 20-20. They're both equally important. During deep sleep, you're going to get that restoration, right? You have your muscles are repairing, sort of that recovery, everything's slowing down in your body. And then REM sleep, you're consolidating memories, you're processing emotions, etc. So they're both equally important. And I think, what was your other question?
I guess my follow-up to that is that I tend to struggle with the deep sleep portion. Like when I have a bad night of sleep, it's usually my deep sleep that is lower. And I tend to have better REM, meaning that like that tends to not be as disturbed. Like, for example, I'll give you the perfect story. So last night I went to bed at the same time I always do. So like that's one of the things 8 Sleep tracks is like what time you're going to bed. So I was trying to get into bed around 8:30, 45 because I like to get up early. And as soon as I fell asleep, my son came into the room and woke me up and it was like, look at my finger, it's bleeding like crazy. I don't know what to do. And so I woke up and I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, I think it's okay. Just like put pressure on it, wash it a couple times. And so we had like a little conversation. And then he left. And then I was wide awake and I couldn't fall back asleep. And then my husband comes into the room like an hour or two later and I'm awake again because, you know, whatever. So what I noticed is that I was able to sleep in a little bit and my REM kind of caught up almost like, but my deep sleep was terrible. Is that something that women often see, is the deep sleep being disturbed?
There's even some older sleep deprivation studies where they show that your core temperature is actually like much, much lower after sleep deprivation the next night to help your body get more deep sleep and recover that. And so we just, in our study that I mentioned, we have just found that the pod actually lowers core temperature. And that's what's leading to the improvements in heart rate and heart rate variability. But using the pod will help improve deep sleep. But in general, back to your story, the interruptions you had in the first half of the night is when you get most of your deep sleep. And so you can't really recover that in the second half of the night. And a large part of that is due to temperature because you need those lower body temperatures in order to promote deep sleep. There's that connection physiologically.
And then to recover a little bit more, like say tonight, would I try to make the pot a little bit cooler in the first half night manually? Would that help?
You don't have to, because the pod actually will look at your sleep from last night and notice that you had low deep sleep. And so we will give you a colder temperature tonight to promote more deep sleep. Yeah.
That is so cool. And then for people who don't have 8 Sleep, or for people who want to use some of these strategies of temperature control at home and say they want to get started on it, what are some of the things that they might do in their own home even before they get the pod?
So some of the cheapest things you could do is taking a warm bath or shower up to an hour before you go to bed. This is going to help dilate your blood vessels and help reduce your core body temperature. So you're basically sending blood to your hands and your feet to try to lower your core body temperature, which help promote sleep onset or helps you fall asleep faster. The same thing is if you wear socks to bed, this will also help you get warmer and send more blood to the feet and cool your core body temperature so you fall asleep faster. So that's one thing. If you have a way to program.
So socks in bed is a good thing.
Yes. You might wake up later in the night and feel like it's too hot and then take them off. But falling asleep with socks can be beneficial. Yes. And then if you have a thermostat where you can program like a cooler temperature in the beginning of the night and a warmer temperature in the second half of the night, you could do that to help you as well, because that's when your body temperature is starting to rise again before you wake up. And that's when you get most of your REM sleep.
And then I guess the other question is, I know you're working on a lot of research around women's health. What is the difference between the way women sleep versus the way men sleep?
So at a high level, from a temperature perspective, women generally have cooler body temperatures than men due to their slightly lower metabolism. But during sleep, women and men need the same exact body temperatures to sleep well. So women need a warmer temperature to get their temperatures into that range, whereas men don't need as warm of a temperature. And this is where a lot of the disagreements come from too, right? And then same thing in the workplace where women are like, this place is freezing and men are totally fine.
Yeah.
And so it all goes back to women being slightly cooler than men in general. Their skin temperatures are cooler. And so this is one of the main differences we see between men and women. We also see that difference that I mentioned with I'll go back to that. So with men and women, we see that women have warmer pod temperatures than men, like across the board, across any age. So that's showing us that this is true, in fact.
Do women need more sleep than men?
They get more sleep than men. I don't know if it's been proven that they need more than men, but the research shows that women do get more than men.
Meaning that they, in their ideal world, they like are sleeping more, or in general, they sleep more than men do. I mean, I've seen that anecdotally.
Yeah. If you objectively measure sleep through like a polysomnography, you will see that women sleep more than men in general.
Yeah. And, I've seen some of the sleep research. It says technically women, when they looked at sleep lab data, they tend to only need 20 to 30 minutes more. But what I always think about is like, if you're in a sleep lab and you're only needing 20 to 30 minutes more, it's probably because you don't have the stress, you don't have the interruptions, you don't have, it's not really accounting for real life. So I think the amount of sleep women need is likely more than that. It's probably just underestimated. I was just curious, but it's good to know that women do sleep more, because I find a lot of like pushback about the fact that women do sleep more or need more sleep, because I think sometimes women themselves feel like, they're lazy or they're not doing enough if they're sleeping more than their partner or male counterparts, because you'll see a lot of male, very high functioning people say that they only get 5 to 6 hours of sleep.
Right.
And I think women try to match that but it doesn't often work.
Agreed. And the other thing women try to do is match the circadian rhythm or like bedtimes of men and women. We've also seen in the research that women have earlier circadian rhythm than men. So what that means is they need to go to bed slightly earlier and they tend to wake up earlier. So women do have unique sleep needs compared to men. To go back to your other point, we do see it in our data, and you've seen, I'm sure, a lot of menopausal women complain about their sleep. And I think that's totally valid. But we've actually just recently seen in our data that compared to men of the same age, they are sleeping more and better than men of the same age, but they're sleeping much worse than premenopausal women. So we're starting to think that it's likely that women are comparing to themselves and how they used to sleep when they were premenopausal. And it doesn't matter how it compares to men, honestly. It just matters like how that is changing for women. And so I feel like we need to stop comparing to men because we're not men and it doesn't matter anyway.
And I think what I notice, for example, is when I hit perimenopause, the same types of sleep disturbances that I used to feel right before my period started to happen more and more. Like that feeling that you just didn't get enough rest and you just wake up the next day. And that used to happen to me, pre-period, like PMS, the few days before, but it started to happen for a few days at a time and like a longer stint. And that's how I first started to like notice the sleep changes. And it was very, very stressful for me because I am a physician and I'm a mom and I'm trying to get a lot of things done. And it would happen like night after night. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And I think that and then I would get my period and then it would kind of like normalize a little bit again. And then I would have it again. But it seemed like the number of days that I was struggling with sleep was just going up. And I think a lot of women feel that way.
Oh, I'm sure. And that's likely because your hormones are fluctuating so much during perimenopause, right?
Exactly. And I think it's that progesterone, that drop in progesterone right before your period. And for me, that kind of not only does it make me less likely to fall asleep, it also wakes me up. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and not be able to fall asleep, often because you're like thinking about things or you're feeling anxious. So what is your tip actually for that? I talk to so many patients and readers and followers who are like, I fall asleep fine, but it's that middle of the night waking, then I can't fall back asleep.
I have the same issue. I I can tell you what the research says. I can't say that I do that myself. I need to follow it myself. But basically, the research says that if you're lying in bed for more than 20 minutes, you should get out of bed and go do something that is not stimulating. So whether that's reading a book, folding laundry, whatever that is, that will help you not associate your bed with ruminating thoughts. Because the more you just lay in bed and hope to fall back asleep, the more your brain now associates bed with thinking through all of these things. So that's one thing. The other thing, I guess this doesn't help during the middle of the night, but in terms of falling asleep, if people are having trouble, there's been research showing that if you write down your to-do list for tomorrow, you will fall asleep faster. So I've started doing that. I think it's helping.
On a piece of paper, or do you do it on your phone?
I just do it on paper.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Because I was like, maybe it's better to do it on paper than your phone, because then you would see that blue light in the middle of the night. I try not to, as much as possible, look at my phone, because that, if I look at my phone in the middle of the night, that it's donezo. Like, I'm awake then.
Totally.
So yeah, doing something maybe with a nightlight or something makes sense. But that's a very common question. Does a pod help with that a lot at all? Like, would you say that if someone wakes up in the middle of the night and they have a pod, that they could maybe like decrease the temperature? Like, is there anything that you can do that could help you fall asleep faster?
Yeah, you can decrease the temperature. You could try warming it. It depends what time of the night you're in, really, and what's going to help you. And if you woke up feeling warm, you could definitely decrease the temperature or use the hot flash mode. But we do see with people who tend to have higher wake times, when the women, especially when they're on the pod, they have a reduction of about, I believe it's 15% in wake after sleep onset. So that's a pretty large reduction.
That's great. What are some of the attributes that you found through your research that people might not know about sleep or about women's health?
We did a really large study recently where we surveyed women who are 8 Sleep members. So we had over 1,800 women respond and fill out what stage of life they're in. Are they menopausal, peri, post? Are they on HRT, hormone replacement therapy, or not? Are they taking hormonal birth control? Do they have a regular cycle or not? And what we found, it's like this really beautiful pattern. It's on our website under the blog section, but we basically saw a 5-degree Fahrenheit difference in the temperatures, the pod temperatures that pregnant women in their 3rd trimester used compared to women who are on hormonal birth control. So it just goes to show, like, that might not seem very big, but like as small as 1 to 2 degree Fahrenheit change in temperature can wake you up. So this is actually a pretty big temperature difference between these two groups. And we had menopausal women who weren't on HRT actually similar temperatures to the pregnant women. So coldest temperatures as well. So that was really a cool finding that we weren't expecting. And if you do look at the research, taking HRT or any sort of control, estrogen, progesterone actually does raise your core body temperature. So our data show that women who are taking HRT or on birth control actually prefer warmer pod temperatures. So it aligns with that pretty well, which is cool.
That is really cool. Are there any new features that you're coming out with or that you can talk about that women might appreciate?
I'll say that we have also seen, like I mentioned, with these colder temperatures with pregnant women. So we're definitely thinking about how can we create features for pregnant women that will help them throughout that each trimester be more comfortable and sleep better, because sleep is also a huge issue for women in their 3rd trimester, as I'm sure you know.
Oh my gosh, I had the worst sleep during my 3rd trimester. I was like, I cannot believe I'm having this bad sleep and then I'm going to have a newborn baby. Like, it's like a double whammy, right? So I definitely, I did, just like I struggled during perimenopause, I remember struggling with my pregnancy, especially my first one. And then with what I learned after my second one was that I was going to just sleep whenever I could. So I would sleep like, at random. I would like go to bed at like 6:30 p.m. just so like I could get some sleep before I had to wake up to feed. And so I can only imagine what kind of crazy, statistics that would give to people, if they have the pod. But I think that's a really good idea, because women during that time really struggle as well. One of the other things I found, is there any data that you have about fitness or weight loss and association with the pod? Or it sounds like, obviously, I would think that it would help you with recovery with fitness. What about weight loss?
We haven't looked at weight loss yet. That's a really interesting question. we have talked about the pod's ability to generate more brown fat if people wanted to sleep at really cold temperatures, which would lead to
Yes.
more weight loss. We haven't tested that yet, but I think it would be cool to try out. But we do see in general, back to the fitness piece, we did a study where we asked people to do fitness tests before they purchased their pod. And then after they purchased it, we asked them to repeat those fitness tests at different time points. And we did see an improvement in cardiovascular fitness. So your VO2 max, we saw an improvement in strength, which was really cool. And then we also saw improvements in behavior change. So people were like worrying less about how much they were going to sleep. They were like less concerned about having insomnia. And so I think a lot of those, we actually had some people write in and say, since they got the pod, they stopped smoking. So I think to your point, there might be people that have lost weight just through using a new health tool that's helping them sleep better. And now maybe because they're sleeping better, they're not reaching for the sugary foods the next day because their hormones are better regulated, and that's helping them lose weight.
Okay, Nicole, what about a personal pod? Meaning like, okay, I travel a lot, right? Obviously, I can't bring it everywhere I go. And so are there any thoughts of doing some kind of travel mode situation?
This is something a lot of people ask us for, and we have not yet done it. And maybe in the future we will.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, but I always look forward to coming home so I can kind of see. And oh my God, I went to New York last week and I got home at 1 a.m. on Friday night. And I looked at my stats on Saturday morning and they were like so bad. I was stressed. My heart rate was up. Obviously I went to bed like way too late and then got up late. And so I was like, oh my God, I need to like get everything in order. But it was nice because listen, I would have never known that. I would have just been like, oh, I just, I'm traveling. I got home, I was moving time zones. So I knew like, typically if I didn't have the pod, I would probably say like, oh yeah, that's just par for the course. And I wouldn't have changed anything. But because I saw all of those horrible numbers, I like spent all day Saturday kind of doing more nature walks, like kind of decreasing my stress levels. And then trying to like kind of reset everything because I knew that clearly I was overstressed and tired. And so I think it does kind of make you more proactive about it. So it ended up being that Sunday night was the first night that I could really recover. And I did all the things, all the right things, because I wanted a good score on Monday morning. And I did get a better score on Monday morning. Although like I've noticed since Friday, and probably just effects of travel. Like Friday, my HRV was really low and my heart rate was really high. And then Saturday was a little bit better and Sunday was a little bit better. And then finally, we're at Tuesday and I finally got my HRV kind of back to like normal range. But I was like, wow, travel really did a number on me. Is that something you see often in people who are using the pod?
Yeah, so we just launched our jet lag mode where you can actually track your flights and it will tell you how to adjust for the new time zone. So I think this will really help people, but it will also be interesting because now we have data of like where people are traveling to and we can answer that question better. But there's a lot of research showing that jet lag, whether it's like you traveling to a new location or just social jet lag, right? Where like you stay up later on the weekend because you're at a party or whatever, that also can really impact your sleep and circadian rhythm. So I don't know if you saw the latest data from the UK Biobank. There's over 300,000 people were studied, and they showed that sleep regularity, going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, was more important than the total sleep time that you got in reducing all-cause mortality. So I really think that this is like a key piece that people have to focus on more, is really trying to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. And if you have a short trip somewhere, can you sort of stay on the original time zone if it's just like 1 or 2 nights, if possible?
So I can wake up at 11 a.m. when I'm on the East Coast because I live on the West Coast.
Exactly. Just put all your meetings later.
So this is inspiring me to suggest that we do more day parties, because if we need sleep the same time every night and wake up the same time, and that is more important than total sleep duration, then we should just be doing day parties. What do you say?
I agree.
Because I'm like, well, there's already move away from alcohol. Oh, we didn't talk about that. That's a big one. How does alcohol affect sleep in the data that you see?
Yeah, so we just actually looked at that in our menopausal women study, which I didn't realize this, but there's not been really any studies looking at the impacts of alcohol specifically in postmenopausal women. And so we actually see a pretty large decrease in heart rate and HRV. We didn't look at sleep yet, but those two metrics are really tanked after even just 1 to 2 drinks. So I think regardless of age, like how often you drink, you are going to see a decrease in those metrics.
Okay. And last question from me is, what about supplements, like sleep supplements, melatonin, chamomile, valerian root, GABA? Do you feel from the data that you have, is it bad to take these things before bed? Is it like decreasing your sleep quality, or is it something that supports it?
Yeah, we actually have a supplement for falling asleep, and it's called Sleep Elixir, but
Oh, nice.
that it does improve sleep, and it improves sleep quality. And I don't think any of those are bad. I think melatonin gets a bad rep because people can take too much, and I think often people forget it's a hormone. You probably know this better than I do being a doctor, but I think also it can be dangerous for kids or teens because it is a hormone. And so that's the one area I would probably not recommend doing that for poor sleep in a kid or a teen.
That's great. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let you tell us more about how to find out more about you, how to find out more about 8 Sleep, what's coming up next, how do people find out about all of that?
Sure. So you can find us on the usual channels, 8sleep.com. You can check out our science content on our blog page. And we also are on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, all the usual platforms. I'm on LinkedIn if you want to look for me. And what's next? We are really invested in our Women's Sleep Initiative. We're also invested in AI pretty heavily and seeing what that can do for us in terms of personalizing sleep even more. We're also really looking at new products that will be coming out in the next year, so stay tuned. And then we're really scaling up a new area of medical for us and getting our device FDA approved to help with sleep apnea.
Okay, so I'm proposing this. You need to do this. I'm proposing you do like a women's symposium, or like, even if it's small, like say like 20 to 50 people, and everyone gets to learn about women's health insights, and then they get to sleep in an 8 Sleep bed that night. Like, are there any hotels that you have that have the pod or can get fitted with the pod? I mean, what woman wouldn't want to go to that conference? Like, it would be like the best thing ever.
That would be awesome. We could just set it up in the hotel rooms, and then everyone just goes to the conference and then goes to sleep.
And it would be like the conference would stop every night. Like, there'd be nothing after 6 p.m. It wouldn't start till so everyone has like ample time to get their rest.
Yes.
It would be, oh my God, a dream. So
I love that idea.
Nicole, it's been such a pleasure talking to you about women's health, about sleep, about 8 Sleep. I'm really excited about the things that you are working on with your team. I can tell you, I was telling someone the other day that out of all the interventions that I've done in my life over the last year, this has been the most impactful one. Having the pod has literally changed the way I operate during the day and how I sleep. And so I want to thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of the Save Yourself podcast.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for having me.